On June 6, 1904, this brick building that looks so much the worse for wear after its 106 years of neglect, this brick building was the center of a shot heard round the world. Labor wars in America hit this spot on that day. Troops shot the building. They climbed up on the roof and shot through the skylights, trying to get the Union miners out of the Victor Miners Union Hall. It was the headquarters of the Western Federation of Miners Local Number 32, and 1904 was the middle of the Cripple Creek labor wars. Local number 32 had proudly raised $30,000 to build this 12,500 square foot hall, opened in 1902. It was an icon to an achievement lauded nationally and internationally. Old photographs show us what the building no longer can. Modern photographs show us the toll taken by human neglect and the natural elements. Today, it will take an estimated $545,000 just to stabilize the building and restore the roof. Then we can restore the building to public use. The goal is to have the Victor Miners Union Hall be a labor and mining history educational center. It was a remarkable thing that miners, immigrants, in the 1890s could form an organization successful enough to build such an auspicious building. But they were able to do it because success had occurred for the Western Federation of Miners in an earlier strike here in 1894, when the miners won the 8-hour workday, safer mining conditions, and a pay increase of $3 a day. John Harper, my great-grandfather, was president of Victor Miners Local Number 32. He also achieved the role of manager at the Gold Coin Mine, just up the block from the Miners Union Hall. This one block of North 4th Street in Victor, Colorado, was the center of labor warfare in 1904. The 1904 strike really started in 1903 when Victor Miners recognized and supported the strike of smelter workers in Colorado City, where the ore went down for processing. Mine owners asked the governor to send troops, and in a secret deal paid for it themselves. When the troops arrived, tensions mounted. The militia General Bell ignored the court orders, ignored the Constitution. To quote him, "I came to do up this anarchistic federation. I'll take no further orders from civil authorities. Habeas corpus, hell. We'll give 'em post-mortems." The strike exploded when a bomb went off at the Independence Depot near Victor, killing 13 scabs, strike-breaking miners, and wounding several others. Panic erupted. The anti-union forces called upon Victor to blame the Western Federation of Miners for the explosion at the Independence Depot. Mine owners called a meeting right here in the middle of the street in front of the Victor Miners Union Hall. Miners who were members of the union met across the street from the hall in a vacant lot. The secretary of the Mine Owners Association proclaimed to the crowd right here in front of the Miners Union Hall in the middle of the street, "United States citizens must arm themselves and drive those Federation men to the hills. For the blowing up of those brave boys, 50 Union men should be shot down like dogs and as many more swung on telephone poles." All hell broke loose then. Union men from the meeting in the vacant lot across the street walked across and entered the hall, perhaps 50 of them, to take a stand. The militia emptied weapons upon the Miners Union Hall to force its members into the streets. Snipers fired from rooftops. Men shot their revolvers at random. Men fell to the ground. The Union men finally surrendered with white flags. The troops then created bullpens from vacant lots and barbed wire, not allowing men to be fed until the women's auxiliaries forced their way in. Next, the mob assaulted the hall. They dragged the men out, but they also dragged out the records, the furniture, and any property they could move, destroying what was in front of them. Sheriff Robertson had objected to the need for militia in the first place. Now the militia took him into the old Armory Hall, took him upstairs, and put a noose around his neck, threatening to lynch him if he didn't resign as sheriff. He had to give in and resigned. The troops now ran Victor. Across Victor Avenue was the Western Federation of Miners Cooperative Store that they had founded in order to serve the miners and their families because local merchants would not sell to them during the strike. John Harper was the manager of the co-op store. The mob attacked it too, and all the other co-op stores in the area, looting, stealing things, destroying it, even using dynamite on it. That night, June 6th, vigilantes formed mobs called Whitecaps because they wore hoods over their heads, like the Ku Klux Klan. They came to the striking miners and leaders' doors and tried to kidnap them. In the case of John Harper, he was first threatened with lynching with a noose around his neck as his wife pleaded to kiss him one last time. Then he and his son were kidnapped and taken down Phantom Canyon Road. He was beaten and robbed and left for dead. But of course he survived and came back anyway. There were rumors that the miners had lots of guns to fight this war, but they only had a few. In fact, John Harper was tortured in a sweat box in order to try to get him to tell where their weapons were. He not only didn't have any, a minister had told him he should arm himself, and he had refused. So he fought this industrial war without weapons and ammunition. As the nation and world watched and criticized through newspapers, hundreds of men were arrested, jailed, tortured, and deported from the state. Trains would take them to the Kansas or New Mexico state lines and leave them to their own devices. The one opportunity to avoid this plight that was offered, give up your union membership card and you would be free. Western Federation of Miners posters questioned whether Colorado was even in America. Mine owners and the militia compiled mug books of photographs to blacklist the union leaders from any future employment. Some of the men in these photographs showed the wounds of industrial war, yet see how many, like John Harper, looked the camera straight in the eye. Cocky militiamen hung about the broken windows and doorway, but the Victor Miners Union Hall still stood. Blacklisted and starved out, families like the Harpers left Colorado altogether, yet the Victor Miners Union Hall still stood. It stood through the drama of industrial war. As the center of North 4th Street, it was center stage for historical theater. It stood through the decimation of striking coal miners at Ludlow 10 years later. It stood through the indignities of near abandonment and fleeting uses. It stood through onslaughts, first of class hatred, gunfire, and looting. It stood through onslaughts later of the elements, so damaging that architects and engineers wonder that it does indeed still stand at all. It stands as a symbol worldwide to those who would study past mining and labor issues to gain understanding to improve the future. It stands ready for restoration to function as an active center for such understanding. It stands for freedom and equality. It stands for Colorado being in America.